Hey guys, Hisham here. Today I want to talk about the right way to win government contracts on SAM.gov. If you want to do this, if you want to get into government contracting, might as well do it the right way. And this might come as a shock and might trigger a lot of people, but a lot of the content on YouTube about government contracting is misleading, specifically on when to get in or when to bid on a government contract. What I mean by that, there's a lot of content out there for people saying, okay, you find a solicitation on SAM.gov, you write a proposal, you submit a bid, next day you get $100,000 in your bank account. In most cases, that's not what actually happens. It's a long sales process, especially you're working with the government. You should expect, in some cases, we're talking 12 months sales cycle. So it's a marathon and not a sprint. If you want to get into government contracting, you have to understand that it's a different sales cycle than selling to a private business. So with that, the key important thing is that what you want to get in the door is as early as possible. What that means is if they release a sources sought, if the government releases a sources sought or a request for information, that's the right time for you to come in, introduce yourself, and help shape up the solicitation. So what I mean by that, by the time it becomes a solicitation and they want a request for a quote or proposal, you have developed a relationship with the agency, and then you also helped shape the solicitation to what it is right now. And I'm going to show you an example of what I mean by this. My business, I work in software development, so these are the kind of solicitations and government contracts that I look into. And I found this one, which is an end-to-end software development project that I thought was really interesting. Now, you see that the type is sources sought, and I see here in the AI summary that they are seeking sources for end-to-end software development services. And interested bidders should review the enclosed request for information. So what I'm trying to get in at the request of information phase. Why is that important? Because this way I can tell them, in this case software, what software development tools they might need to use. And this will be advantageous to my business because I'm telling them of software that would give me a competitive advantage. For example, if I tell them, it makes sense to code using this specific language, or it makes sense, for example, to use this cloud infrastructure, then they might include those as requirements in the solicitation, which would give me a competitive advantage over other people. Another example is they might ask for, because they don't know software, and you could think the same about your niche. You're talking with contracting officers. In some cases, they don't know exactly the details of how to perform the job. They just want the end result. So you could say same for construction, in this case, software. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to shape up the opportunity to give them and ask them exact questions that would help me understand where this is going. So for example, I could ask, is there budget for this right now? So I would know that if they tell me yes, then, or if they say this is for this year, then I know that probably they're going to release something in the next 30 to 60 days. So this information would help me get my stuff together. Now, if they say, I could also tell them that as a small business, I could perform this. So you could release this, for example, it would make sense to release this as a set aside for small businesses. Or I could ask, are you planning to release this as set aside for small business? They might say no. They might say, oh, we're releasing this as a set aside for women-owned businesses. In that case, what I would have to do is prepare myself to partner with a woman-owned business or try and get the certification myself, if possible, obviously. So these things would help me get myself ready for when the solicitation comes. I'm ahead of everyone else. At the same time, I've developed a relationship. And 3, I've shaped up the solicitation if possible because they're asking for my knowledge, they're asking for my expertise, for my sources. And because I came in early, I was able to tell them, so let's say for this one, I was able to tell them, okay, what do you want? And I used the AI here to get exactly what they want. They want the development of an HR system. And then they're talking about SMS, email messaging, task alerts. What I could tell them, we have to use this specific API for email messaging or SMS. I could tell them for data storage of this information, recruitment events, we have to use AWS. I'm just giving an example here. I could give them exact layout of how they should integrate, for example, with the USA job board they have. So when giving them this information, they might think, oh, this is the business that we want to hire, especially if you show your credentials, your past performance, you show that you know what you're talking about. They might think, oh, this is the business that's helped us shape this solicitation. they know what they're talking about. You're developing a relationship and you're coming off as someone who knows what they're talking about. When it goes to the next step, and I'm emphasizing this because it's important, you are ahead of everyone else. I mean, that's just a fact. And if you are not, then somebody else has taken the steps before you. They've done the homework. They got in at a step earlier and they are ahead of you. And in most cases, people who start early because you have time to prepare, get the certificates you have, team up with the teams, team up with businesses that you need to team up if you miss a certification, get yourself ready and develop your material as well. So you are just by that you would have an advantage. Now, another thing that's important is when you give them the sources sought, you could schedule a meeting with the agency. So you could ask them all the questions that you want about their plans of how they plan to release this, when they plan to release it. So you could ask for set aside information, as I mentioned. You could ask for when they plan to release it. You could ask if they have budget for it this year or next year. And based on that, you can then mark your calendar that this is something that maybe I have to go circle back in Q1 next year. If they tell you we will have budget for this in Q1 of next year, then you would circle that in your calendar and you're ready once Q1 comes to follow up with them and get started with the process if they plan to release it. Now, if they tell you we're planning to do this as soon as possible, that's good information for you. Then you would know that I have to get ready, prioritize this specific contract because the deadline for release is approaching. Make sure you capitalize on sources sought and request for information. It's the way to do government contracting. Again, you are selling to a business. People buy from people. So if they trust you, they know that you have the required experiences, then they are more likely to buy from you. Again, we're people at the end of the day. It's not just the government. We're talking to contracting officers. So if they see that you are the person to do this job, then they most likely are going to give it to you. So that's my advice for you, is always start as early as possible in the government contracting process. If you want to find sources sought across federal, state, everything, make sure you get samsearch.co. As you can see here, I was able to break it down quickly using the AI. And if I want to generate a response to it, I could do that with AI as well. Thank you so much for watching. Get SamSearch and get back to sources sought and request for information. Bye-bye.